On March 3rd, 2011, I left my apartment in Tempe, Arizona with 2 children, 4 boxes, 9 suitcases, and moved to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, the jewel of the Red Sea. Now, of all of the places that I ever wanted to visit or live in my life, Saudi Arabia did not even make the list. But my husband found an English teaching opportunity in Jeddah, and he decided to go. And I told him I'm not going at all. And that lasted for a good 6 months. And I was tired of the single parenting by choice thing, so I decided to pack up my children and move to Jeddah. I had a full life in Tempe. I was a nonprofit program director, a jewelry designer, had lots of friends. So I decided if I have to live in Saudi Arabia, I was going to be a lady who lunched. I get massages, get my nails done, and that lasted for about 5 weeks before I got bored. My husband had a friend who had a wife who needed an English teacher at her American curriculum school, and she asked me. Now, I had taught in America for many years, and I decided, why not get back in the classroom? So I show up for the interview, and I come to find that she's a South African woman. Now, she's colored, not colored by American standards, but in South Africa, you have black people like me, you have white people, and you have colored people. Those are the people who sort of fall in between, and that's what Dalal was. And she was a native English speaker, and she needed someone who could teach the high school English class. The teacher that they had, she couldn't handle the children, and I'm from Detroit. I taught in inner city schools in Detroit, and I taught in South Phoenix. I was like, I got you. And I got the job, and I loved it. It was an all-girls school. Boys could come up to grade 3, and teachers could take their hijabs off in school. It gave me an opportunity to interact with Saudi women. It was great. So I show up on the first day of school, and the students, they loved me. They were from all across the Gulf, all across the Middle East. It was fantastic. But I was a bit of a disappointment. You see, both me and Dalal, my South African friend, we were considered Ajnabi, foreigners. But I was a disappointment as an American because I was black. But I made it my mission to turn them around to my side. And I did a good job. So I took the job in April, and by June, the owner of the school invited me to be the head of department. I like to say HOD. So I got to be the HOD of the early primary department in charge of 400 students. Now, this was a big job. So I spent all summer preparing, and I decided that I would greet all of the students on the first day of school by standing on the curb. You know how American principals do. They welcome all the kids into the school on the first day. So I stood out there in my abaya saying, good morning, marhaba, assalamu alaikum. And all of the parents looked at me like I was a little crazy. Of course, they were all men because at that time, women couldn't drive in Saudi Arabia. And then one of the parents got out and he threw his children's backpack at my feet. I said, oh, you must not have had your coffee this morning. And he said something in Arabic and he drove off. Then it happened again, and I didn't know what I was doing to make them upset until one of the dadas rushed up. Now, dada is an Arabic word that loosely translated means sister, but dada is also another word for maid, and all of the maids at our school were African. They were from places like Ethiopia, Chad, Nigeria, Somalia, and she came rushing out. She picked up the backpack, and she said, Miss, and it looked like she wanted to say something. And she stopped. She turned around and she left. Then my administrative assistant, a Jordanian woman, walked up and she said, Miss Angelica, you should not be out here. The parents won't understand. And then that's when I got the idea that the parents were throwing backpacks at my feet because they thought I, a black woman, was a maid. Now, being confused for a maid, it didn't bother me. But what did bother me is that I made my sister, the dada, look bad because she got shouted at by the principal for not standing outside and taking the bags instead of me. So I was not making any friends. But my classroom was great. You see, even though I was still the head of department, I also taught English because even though I was a disappointment as a foreigner, they could not deny my credentials. I was the only English teacher who could teach Shakespeare, Sylvia Plath. I knew that Southern Gothic was a literary style and not a form of dress. They could not touch me in that department. And my students loved me. That classroom was like my cocoon. So since I was in an all-American school and I could take my scarf off, one day I finally had the nerve to take it off for the very first time in class. I had my head down grading some essays. And when I looked up, all of these girls were standing around my desk, "Oh, miss, mashallah, helwa, helwa." And they wanted to touch my head. And I was feeling kind of good, kind of like Beyonce a little bit. So I was feeling so great, I decided to keep it off for the rest of the day. But when I exited the classroom and I entered the playground, all I heard was laughter. So I rushed into the bathroom to check to make sure everything was okay. I looked in the mirror. There I was, bald head, orange lipstick, saucer-sized earrings. I was still straight. Now, even though I no longer stood on the curbside to accept backpacks, I still made it my mission to visit every classroom every day. And even though boys could go to the school up to grade 3, they were still separated from the girls. So the very first classroom next to the bathroom was the boys' 3rd grade class. I opened the door, "Assalamu alaikum, good morning." And all of the boys took one look at me and they said, "Wa alaikum salam, ya Ustaz Kabir." They laughed. I didn't. They saw the look on my face because even though I couldn't speak Arabic, I understood it enough to know that they had just called me, "Hey, big fat male teacher." So I wasn't making any friends with the 3rd grade boys either. So I walked to the lunchroom. This was the teacher's lounge. It was the only place in the school where you could speak Arabic. I still had my scarf off because I was not about to let some 3rd grade boys steal my thunder. When I walked in, I took out my lunch, jerk chicken, jollof rice, fried plantain, and I opened it up and I started eating it. And then I heard the teachers whispering, "What is that food? What is that smell? Why does she look like that? Does her husband know her hair is that short?" Now, I told you I can understand Arabic and I can't speak it. That's not really true because I could speak it, but only at a kindergarten level. So it wasn't until 5 p.m. that night that I had the answers to all their little questions. My food smells like this because I like to put smoked fish in my jollof rice. And of course, my husband knows what I look like, and he is the one who cut my hair. No friends with the dadas, no friends with the 3rd grade boys, no friends with the teachers. But for some reason, the owner of the school, Mr. Noman, he loved me. And he had spent time in America. And he came to me, he said, "Miss Angelica, I want you to be in charge of Wacky Day." Now, Wacky Day was a huge event at the school. It was kind of like a Muslim Halloween, but without the pagan symbolism. You get the costumes and the candy. So I picked the theme outer space because I'm a diehard Afrofuturist. And I figured this was my chance to shine. If I'm going to go out, I'm going out in a blaze of glory. So I got everything prepared. And on the morning of, all of the students, the teachers, the parents, they all show up in these costumes. They're superheroes, aliens, little green men running everywhere. And here I show up, the big Ajnabi teacher with no hair in a black abaya and a black hijab. Now, everybody looks so disappointed, like, man, she's American. She can't even get this right. So by that time, I had made friends with the one Dada from Chad who spoke English. And I said, "Fatum, I'm going to my office. I'm going to close the door. Don't let anyone come in for 20 minutes. And she said, "Yes, miss, I got you." And 20 minutes later, I emerged from my office. And it was just like the first time that I entered that playground with my hijab off, except this time, instead of hearing laughter, all I heard was gasps. "Wow. Look at Miss Angelica. Oh my goodness." You see, because I had selected to come as a Fela queen. I was from planet Calacuta, Calacuta Republic, Fela Kuti. By that time, my bald head had grown into a TWA. I had red ostrich feathers positioned just so that it was like a mohawk. Half my face was blue, half my face was red. I had managed to find some royal blue lashes at the local souk. I had white dots all over my face. I had cross beads and bangles. You couldn't tell me a thing. And when we got out to the playground, everyone was just like, wow. And I had even organized my grade 12 girls to do a flash mob to an Afrobeat song. We got up on the stage and we danced and we grooved because I figured if I'm going out as the big, fat, bald-headed American teacher who's bringing smelly food to school, I'm going out in a blaze of glory. And as soon as we finished that dance, I expected laughs, I expected gasps, but all I heard was applause. "Yes, Miss Angelica! Wow! The third grade boys were cheering because I figured out that the way to their hearts was teaching them Wu-Tang lyrics and the mechanics of a good jump shot. The African Dadas were like, yes, Africa. Even all the teachers were like, la 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 la, Miss Angelica. It was fantastic. And then there was this one teacher. She was so strict. She never took her scarf off in school. In fact, she even covered her face in front of the other women. As soon as I got off the stage, she pulled me to the side. She said, Miss Angelica, come here. I said, oh, here we go. She said, Miss Angelica, can you teach me? I said, what is that? You know, kita. I said, oh, you want me to teach you how to shake your booty? Of course I can. It was a great moment. The Dadas pulled me into one of the bathrooms and said, Miss Angelica, you told us you're from America, but you move like you're from Africa. You have to tell people you're from Chad. No, she has to tell people she's from Ethiopia. The French teachers at the neighboring school came over and they heard about it. Senegal, Cape Verde, Mauritania. We all wanted you to be our sister. It was a great moment. I had gone to Saudi Arabia thinking that I had to morph into a different version of who I was, but all I had to do was be myself. And Wacky Day was so successful, and my teaching was so successful that I stayed another 9 semesters at the school. In October 2015, I moved back to Tempe, Arizona, this time with 4 children, because there's not a lot to do in Saudi Arabia, a whole lot more suitcases, and a new family in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, a family that I still keep in touch with to this day. Most of my students have graduated from college. Some are married. A couple are about to have babies. And one of them calls me every now and then. And on our last conversation, she said, Miss Angelica, after you left the school, we still had Wacky Day, and it was fun, but it was never as good as when you hosted it.